it'll never be the same because our brother's not here. DMX, you know, rest in peace. You know, we formed like a brotherhood. I didn't have to see him. I didn't have to call him. He didn't have to call me. When we saw each other though, it was that. Right there. It was that. It was beyond like.
Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. You know, because at first you retire, you know, then get me off the label. Now you're back rapping again. Okay.
But they all, you know.
Jay and Beyonce, and they dropped the same day as Nas. After Nas have some type of glitch problem where Tidal wouldn't release his album for at least 24 hours.
Nas is finally spilling the truth that folks in the game been whispering for years. Jay-Z and Beyonce don't just play to win, they play dirty. And now Nas is straight up calling out how both of them have made shady moves against their own peers whenever they feel the spotlight slipping, even pulling stunts on DMX. See, people always knew DMX and Jay had beef, but what really went down behind closed doors? Way messier than anyone guessed. DMX himself said Jay-Z deliberately sabotaged the rollout of his 6th album. Why? Because Jay didn't want to go head-to-head with a real threat. By stalling that album drop, Jay clipped DMX's momentum on purpose, knowing full well X could have outsold him at the time. Fast forward, and Nas says they pulled the exact same slick move on him. When Nas finally dropped Nasir, his big comeback album produced by Kanye West, guess what happened next? Not even 24 hours later, bam!
It was a competitive thing, but it was big love. He was so competitive with me. I never met a human being more competitive with me, like ever, not even my big brother.
Jay-Z and Beyonce dropped Everything Is Love out of nowhere, with a full music video shot in Paris, already locked and loaded. Ain't no way that was just a coincidence. You don't just accidentally launch a whole visual album right after your old rival comes back with heat, and Nas peeped it right away. Because this ain't new behavior from Jay-Z, it's a pattern. The wildest part? Nas wasn't even trying to start beef. He was just focused on his music, but Jay and Bey couldn't let him have that moment. Nas had moved on from all that drama, but the Carters clearly hadn't. Whether it was jealousy, insecurity, or just straight up pettiness, Nas is now pulling back the curtain on how Jay-Z sabotaged anyone he saw as a threat, all while hiding behind Beyonce's squeaky clean image and her massive fan army. Now DMX is making headlines again, not because of anything new, but because fans are finally giving him credit for something major. He was one of the very few rappers who actually had the guts to call Jay-Z out directly.
What happened was, you know, like I said, I had the crazy track record, Def Jam, everything was good. You know, I go to do the 6th album, and, you know,
Jay-Z became president.
Yeah. You know, when he first got the job, he hit me with the call like, yo, dog, inmates is running the building like, yo, you good? Finish the album, shoot the video. What happened? Niggas go on vacation and, you know, we don't know. What you mean you don't know? How do you listen to a whole album, pick a single, shoot a video, then don't know?
Most people stayed silent, scared to speak on Jay or even mention Beyonce's name. But X? He didn't hold back. Here's where it gets even messier. After DMX passed in April 2021, Jay-Z showed up on LeBron James' show trying to rewrite history. He claimed DMX was just too competitive and said it was all love between them. But DMX told a very different story, and Jay conveniently left that part out. According to DMX, Jay was the one who kicked off the whole rivalry back in 2004. That's when Jay took over Def Jam as president after Leor Cohen stepped down. DMX had been holding Def Jam down, dropping 5 back-to-back #1 albums from '98 to '03. But once Jay got power, DMX said he started messing with the release of his 6th album. Straight sabotage. Why? Because Jay was coming out of retirement and didn't want anyone, especially DMX, getting in his way. That's when it all clicked for X. Jay-Z wasn't just ambitious. He was insecure and willing to shut down anyone to protect his spot at the top. That was the final straw for DMX. That's when he knew it was time to bounce from Def Jam.
Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. You know, because at first you retire, you know, then get me off the label, now you're back rapping again. Okay. It's all good. It's all good.
But this mess wasn't just some one-time beef between him and Jay-Z. Nah, it was just one more piece of a pattern that exposes how Jay moves when he feels the heat. Behind that polished image, there's a long history of shady power plays to block anyone he saw coming up strong. Let's talk about Beanie Siegel. He recently exposed how Jay-Z used to intentionally time his own album drops to clash with Beanie's, making sure Beanie's projects got drowned out every single time. That's not coincidence. That's calculated. And then there's Cameron. Remember when Jay crashed that 106 in Park interview Cam was doing? Just rolled up out of nowhere and snatched the spotlight like it was owed to him. Straight spotlight snatching. Jay-Z never wanted anyone else shining brighter than him. But instead of battling it out with bars, he played the behind-the-scenes game, blocking moves, hijacking moments, and making sure no artist got too close to his throne. Now let's swing it back to Nas, because he knows firsthand just how slick Jay-Z can get when he's feeling threatened. Jay's been pulling the same spotlight-stealing tricks with Nas for years. When Nas dropped Stillmatic in December 2001, a huge comeback, Jay popped up just 1 week later with his MTV Unplugged album to snatch attention. Then in 2004, Nas came with Street's Disciple, and what did Jay do? Teamed up with Linkin Park for Collision Course. Perfect timing. Again, coincidence? Not a chance.
I don't think one man could destroy another man's life. It's ultimately in your own decisions. You know, I had a lot of issues. Like I said, legal issues at the time. And, you know, my mind wasn't where I'm at now today. Like, I used to have questions like why every time my album dropped, Jay would drop right on top of me. He wouldn't let me breathe or right before me. Like, I was always close, and I never understood that every single album that I dropped, Jay dropped right on top of me. And it was like, damn. Like, to have in-house competition at that magnitude was crazy. Jay already the boss, but I always thought that, like, let me breathe.
Then in 2007, Nas dropped his greatest hits. And guess what? Jay-Z came right behind with American Gangster just days later. But the petty moves didn't stop there. In 2018, Nas finally released his long-awaited Kanye-produced album, Nasir. And within 24 hours, Jay-Z and Beyonce dropped Everything Is Love out of nowhere, with that flashy Apshes video filmed in the freaking Louvre in Paris. And it gets even more obvious. When Nas dropped the Lost Tapes 2, again, just days later, Beyonce and Jay-Z's The Lion King. The Gift Project magically appeared on all platforms. How many times does this gotta happen before it stops being called a coincidence? Nas doesn't think it's random. And honestly, no one else should either. But here's where things take a whole other turn. Nas also exposed how Jay-Z uses Beyonce's image like a shield to deflect heat whenever he pulls these behind-the-scenes power plays. And unlike most folks in the industry who stay quiet, Nas never held back. Not then, not now.
Valentino giving me super style. That's not what I'm going to do. Yeah, I could have put up movies. I could have showed the R. Kelly video that everybody's talking about, made fun of it, and said, yeah, Jay's hanging out. When Jay and them was in there doing Best of Both Worlds, you can't tell me Jay didn't see a 14-year-old girl come in the studio and sit on R. Kelly's lap. No. You can't tell me, you won't sit here and tell me that working on that album, that he ain't never seen no 14-year-old girl.
One of the most explosive moments? It happened years ago on Wendy Williams' radio show. Nas didn't just call out Jay's shady business games. He went deeper. He flat out accused Jay-Z of staying silent about R. Kelly, even though Jay knew exactly what was going on with those disturbing rumors and allegations. Nas said Jay ignored all the red flags just so he could cash in on their collab, Best of Both Worlds. And he didn't stop there. Nas even hinted that Jay's silence might have been about more than just money, suggesting Jay had his own secrets he didn't want exposed. And instead of clearing the air, Jay-Z pulled another cold, calculated move, like he always does when the pressure's on. Jay-Z didn't just stay silent, he buried the whole mess around his connection to R. Kelly. Then, out of nowhere, he helped finance the surviving R. Kelly docuseries, the same one that helped spark Kelly's arrest and flip the whole narrative. Suddenly he's family man Jay, Beyonce's husband, proud dad of 3, and the poster boy for black capitalism. Clean image, clean slate, just like that.
The vicinity.
My belief is that anybody who's worked with him and been in his cipher has seen it go down.
Brother needs help, and I pray for him. But if I sit there and did an album about women with him, I'm definitely maybe indulgent. He had to be indulgent for 14.
But Nas ain't the only one who's called out the act. 50 Cent recently came for Jay too, and he didn't hold back at all. He said straight up that Jay hides behind Beyonce's polished public image and that their marriage looks more like a business deal than a love story. That's cold. In another interview, 50 even claimed that most of Jay's Grammy wins wouldn't have happened if he wasn't linked to Beyonce. According to him, the industry clout that came with being Mr. Carter boosted Jay more than his bars ever did. And this all loops back to DMX, because X peeped the game before a lot of folks did. Like Nas, DMX wasn't afraid to speak the truth. He saw Jay-Z's moves for what they were, not about lifting up other artists, but about controlling the board and cutting off the ones who posed a threat. Neither DMX nor Nas ever bowed down to Jay's influence. They weren't scared of his connections or his status, and that's why they had mutual respect. They were two of the only voices brave enough to say what everyone else was too scared to whisper. So when DMX passed, it hit Nas hard. Not just because he lost a friend, but because he lost one of the few real ones who saw through it all and actually had the guts to call it out.
Look, when Jay signed his contract, the big one was with Beyonce. Mm-hmm. When he signed that contract, the marriage contract, he got trophies. Now those fucking trophies, trophies came rolling in, buddy. He started getting Grammys left and right, man. I mean, look, listen, if you look at his career,
This guy. Wow. You're gonna let him say that?
Jay was getting Grammys.
he had one.
Exactly.
He had one.
And he ain't show up.
He had like 20 now.
Oh, Lord.
He had like 18 since he been down. Look, he had one, bro. Hard Knock Life.
Hold on.
You're not wrong. At the same time.
After that, he got them shits. He started drinking. His pictures with him like fucking things to cup.
Wait a minute. So you're saying the success is derived from the marriage?
I've absolutely been treated differently.
The accolades. Because he's no longer viewed as what, like a street or gangster rapper. Now he's viewed as a businessman, entrepreneur, family man.
And the biggest ones because of the position Beyonce's.
Oh wow! So that's the deal he signed, huh?
Yeah, that's the deal. Like, the other ones didn't count as much as that one did.
Nas knew the industry was full of politics, but what really shook him was seeing how far Jay-Z would go to protect his image, even if it meant rewriting history and stepping over people who helped build the game. And after DMX passed, Nas seemed more determined than ever to speak his truth, no matter how uncomfortable it made folks. He started shedding light on the quiet war happening behind the scenes, how artists were being blackballed, silenced, or outmaneuvered if they didn't play by Jay's rules. It wasn't always loud or obvious. That's what made it dangerous. Jay didn't have to dish you on a track. He'd simply move things around behind closed doors, and suddenly your album got shelved, your promo dried up, or your tour dates vanished. Nas watched that playbook unfold time and time again. Not just with himself or DMX, but with other talented artists too. And what made it worse was that no one wanted to talk about it. Everyone acted like Jay was untouchable. But Nas had receipts. He knew the timing, the moves, the patterns, and more importantly, he wasn't scared to say it out loud. This wasn't about petty beef or old grudges.
Their kids even have Grammys. Like they don't sing yet. They don't sing. Right. They don't rap yet. And they already have Grammys and shit. So it's like they give them this trophy so we secure that they're coming.
It was about exposing how the power behind the scenes was being used to control narratives and shut doors on anyone who didn't fall in line. And Nas, just like DMX before him, wasn't built to stay quiet and play along. He saw what was going on, and now he's making sure everyone else does too. Now here's where it gets even more wild. Nas didn't just talk about the shady stuff in interviews. He started weaving it into his music. If you really listen to his lyrics in recent projects, he's been dropping clear shots at Jay-Z and the industry machine that protects him. He doesn't name names every time, but if you know the history, you know exactly who he's talking about. In tracks like Death Row East and King's Disease, Nas reflects on how loyalty gets twisted, how real ones get pushed out, and how the game gets rigged behind closed doors. And fans caught it, They started connecting the dots and realizing that Nas had been calling this out for years without anyone truly listening.
My brother DMX, it's an honor to be here tonight. At the same time, it's a sad day. It's a glorious day. We stood outside the Tunnel nightclub about to shoot a scene, and he looked at me and tears in his eyes because he knew about the journey he was about to embark on, becoming a hip-hop icon. I want to say my condolences to my brother DMX family, to all his beautiful kids, to Yonkers, to Rough Riders, Swiss Beats, D.Y., Eve, Locks, the whole family, Drag On, everybody. I said my piece, love.
And it's not just about Jay trying to outshine Nas with album drops. It's deeper than that. It's about using influence to control the narrative, shaping how people remember certain moments, and painting himself as the hero while silencing the ones who had a different story to tell. That's what Nas has been fighting against. The fake cleanup jobs, the hidden power plays, and the way certain artists get protected no matter what they've done behind the scenes. And he's not just saying it for himself. He's saying it for every artist who's ever been pushed aside, blocked, or forgotten because they didn't kiss the right ring. What's wild is, people are finally waking up. They're starting to see how calculated some of these moves really were, and how long Nas has been trying to warn us. But Nas and DMX weren't just friends in the game. They were truth tellers, straight up calling out the behind-the-scenes moves Jay-Z worked hard to keep hidden. From sabotaged rollouts to using Beyonce's image as a shield, the layers of manipulation run deep. But here's the real question. How much of this do fans actually see, or even want to see? And what do you think about the way Jay handles his competition? Was Nas right to expose it all? Was DMX really one of the last real ones to speak up without fear? And let's be honest, how much does Beyonce's clean image help shape Jay's legacy in the public eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments, don't hold back. And if you rocked with this breakdown, make sure you like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear the real. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned.